Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet and let's get started. Have you ever made the decision to leave your job in the middle of a shift? For what reason if so? Part 5. I got hit with a 15 top at 1:55 in the morning just before we closed. Even though I told him not to, he let them in because we got this, I'll help you out. He hid in the office while I looked for a tip I was sure would be bad. I looked them over, gave him my money and receipts, and told him it's been fine. I gave up. The second job was maintenance at a gas station called Buc-ee's. People from Texas will tell you that Buc-ee's is great. Looks like a fancy gas station with a big country store. It's fancy for a gas station, but anyone with good taste would find it unbelievably tacky. The GM was the worst boss I've ever had. Terrible witch who made mean threats against workers all the time. Try to picture Umbridge from Harry Potter. Be in a cartoon way. There wasn't anything that made me do it. I was just sick of being treated badly while seeing my hard work go to things I hate most: smoking, drinking, and cars. Before I quit, I worked for about 9 months at the busiest restaurant in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. When I started, they had just fired all of their managers and made the servers and bartenders the sole managers. 2 of my managers hit on me a lot, but I didn't mind. When I started dating a coworker, they turned the tables on me. I got in trouble with those managers for silly things like having a host fold t-shirts at my only party table one night. I was mad. "What's more important to you right now, being right or going home?" my friend asked. I really thought about what she said, sucked down my pride, finished my shift, and went home. I went to work every day, always show my best side. The owner saw me take a salad to the back and eat some of it. I then left it, did my work, and then came back to it and finished it. Everything was fine, no guests were upset, no tea was left unfilled, etc. After a few hours, my manager, the one with the host at my table, came up behind me and asked, "Are you going to pay for that salad?" I turned around because I was lost. I told them that the salad had been there for more than an hour. With his finger on the cameras, he said, "Well, the Illuminati's watching." The salad was dead, so I told my boss again that it was going to be thrown away because I was hungry. My boss told me he had to charge me for it. As I worked, someone with a new salad asked, "Hey Bree, did you order a salad?" I was furious and said, "No, I didn't, and if anyone eats it, they have to pay for it." That's when another creepy manager guy told me, "If you eat it without permission, you have to pay full price." I snapped back, "No, we pay full price because our owners are jerks." Not only was this a new rule, but we could only order from the kids menu no matter how many hours we worked. I took off my apron, went to the front of the house, and told my boss I was leaving. As I was leaving, I was told I needed to pay for my salad. They were told to take it out of my pay. In most states, servers don't get paid by their employers. So, in my opinion, my job pays their bills and lets them take vacations while they ask for more. I'm still happy that I left. Walked out of a grocery store job years ago. The store manager was a real jerk. He was a corporate body that was demoted to store manager for reasons that were not disclosed. He was so annoying that many people in almost every department were either seriously thinking about leaving, actively looking for new jobs, or had already given their notice. He was openly rude, racist, heartless, and sexist, and he was also good at manipulating people. He sometimes changed people's shift times on the day of their shifts just to get one of them in trouble. This happened more than 10 years ago before most people used apps to make plans. Back then, everything was done on paper. He would not tell employees he didn't like that their insurance signups were having problems, lied about someone being full-time, and even told someone they wouldn't be paid for their week of paid vacation after they had already taken it, that they only took because he said it was okay. He finally went after me. He probably knew that I had reported him to the HR department of my company so many times that they blocked my email address, physically blocked my exit in a break room full of people who could see me and said I was stealing. Since I wasn't carrying any goods, I asked him to list these supposed things, and this is what he gave me. Diapers, I don't have kids, a box of cigars, I don't smoke, a bottle of liquor, this was my job and I knew it was a trick, pills for sleep, I've never taken one in my life. A case of gummy bears, my diabetes, is listed on my employee profile, and I don't understand why someone would steal a whole case. When the item in question arrived in a 10-pound plus bulk, I told him to move out of my way, and he did. But I only got 6 feet outside the door before I threw my name tag in the trash. I worked 30 hours a week, but only made $8 an hour. After only a few days, I was already making $11.75 an hour, working 40 hours a week somewhere else with about 20% less work. My last job before I went to medical school. As an engineer, I made parts for rockets and missiles. I had already given my notice. It was actually my last week. I'd already moved out all of my own things, so on Wednesday, I was called into the office of my supervisor. I was finishing up my work in the purchasing department, approving vendors to build parts for a government contract. I wouldn't certify one vendor because they couldn't do the job. So the boss basically gives me a legal pad and tells me to write down and sign their note. We had controlled stamps on the paper to make sure it was real, so I wrote Company XYZ does not appear technically or materially able to perform the contract as written, signed it, and stamped it. It makes him crazy when he reads it, starts yelling at me to sign them. He asked for my stamp even though I told him I wouldn't. No was my answer. I was fired, he said. Warren, take this job and shove it, I told him straight out. Okay, fine. The people who worked in personnel were right next door to where I was leaving the purchasing department. I told the front desk worker that my boss had just fired me and asked them to mail me my last check and tell me what to do with my control stamp. The VP of personnel heard me, called me into her office, and listened to my story. I called my boss and asked, WTF, the boss can't fire people. It was the first thing she heard about it. I tell her to ask the people in the bullpen. There were no real offices except for the VP. The supervisor had a high cube with a door. She tells me I'm lying. She checks and sees that I was right. The VP of personnel told me I'm not fired. I say I'm done. Say it again about the check and stamp. Shopping for the vice president comes over and tells me I can go back to work. I tell him I've been fired and that I'll be calling an uncle who's a labor lawyer and the US DOD inspection agency when I get home because my stamp was demanded to be tampered with and I was told to fake a certification. Before I left, they walked the boss out. There are 3 guards and a banker's box. Surprise! Gave me my last check. They gave me 2 months' pay on top of what they owed me. I asked for a receipt for my stamp, which I defaced in front of them, slashed it. All in all, a good morning. Have the members of your HOA or any of your neighbors ever done anything absolutely outrageous? Part 5. Property line complaint. Our next-door neighbors seemed very friendly at first, strange and nice. There were no problems with the fact that her house was a little bigger than ours the first time I met her. She said it about 5 to 8 times. It was also creepy that she said she could see that we took down a wall from her bathroom window. We moved in last week after having to leave in February. We applied right away for a fence permit. The township told us to clear up some stuff and sent us a surveyor's stamped map of our lot. My neighbor told me that the 16-year-old owner of our house had told them the lot line went through a few bushes on the property. Turns out that the township was wrong when they said that my property only went about 20 feet over. Our house is on a street that curves, so the piece of land we're gaining is shaped like a pie. The wife is unhappy, but the husband doesn't seem to care. This is new information, which she said 10 times. It was this way for 17 years. She stated, "You have to understand that after 17 years, this is a shock to us, and this is how it's always been." She also told me how my fence should look. She wants it to be more than 6 to 10 feet from the property line, even though the township said it could be 1 inch off. I chose to leave 2 feet of space for a mower. Finally, she told me, "That window over there belongs to my teenage daughter, and we don't want her to look out and feel like someone's watching her." This is what the woman who looked into my house from her bathroom window said. I know you thought your house was bigger than it really is, but it's not my fault that you got that information from a sketchy source. I pay taxes on that land, and I'd like to be able to use it. My land is only .31 acres, and my side yard is big and my backyard is small. Update. The township told me to use a metal detector to find the property pin, and I was out there and she came over and started yelling at me. She told me that the property line isn't being argued over and that what I was doing was inappropriate and my daughter is right upstairs studying in that room. The other day, we had a supervisor come out, and my property goes an extra 10 feet past where I thought it did, which is 30 feet they didn't expect. The survey asked me, "What is wrong with you, neighbor?" The neighbor had been yelling at me that I was digging up her lawn and that it was her land, not theirs, while her husband was on the phone with the township. Here's a text message we sent to each other. In from A-hole. Hello, OP. This is the jerk next door. Could you and Mrs. OP both spare a few minutes today or tomorrow to talk or email? From OP. Hi, A-hole. In fact, the surveyor was out today. Please don't take this the wrong way, but we're not ready to talk right now. We made sure we're following the right steps to make sure the fence is on our property. Based on your suggestion, we spent extra money to make sure this was right. The most important thing to us is that our son and dog have space. Not to do anything, just to be mean. Things that were said to me and the surveyors today makes us think that there's some dislike. I'm just trying to avoid a fight. Hope you get it. From A-hole. There's no anger. We're also not looking for a fight. We'd just like to talk about your plans for the fence in a friendly way. Any projects that are done along the property line have a big effect on our daily lives because they're so close to where we live, work, and play with our teenage daughter. We're not against you putting up a fence, and we never have been. End texting. Basically, they want to tell me where to put my fence, even though they haven't talked about their fence with their neighbors. The fence is set up 3 feet away from the property line, and I was thinking of putting arborvitae there. Approximately 30 to 40 years ago, the first people to move into the neighborhood where we currently reside were my longtime neighbors. The first home to be completed and put up for sale was theirs. At that time, they had 8 children. An old-fashioned cable antenna was being installed on the chimney by the husband, who was out working. As he was standing on his roof, a man who was the developer approached him and said, "Hey, this is against the rules that the homeowner have set up, so you can't put that up there." An expression of confusion appeared on his face as he looked down at him and asked, "Are there any other members of the homeowners association?" "Well, no." "Then I hereby declare the association to be dissolved. By a unanimous vote, the vote's taken. I want you to get off my lawn." We were all spared a great deal of trouble. I rent a condo in a neighborhood where about 85% of the homes are owned and occupied by older people. I, 32F, have been in places where I didn't feel safe before, which is why I always have security around me. To give you some background, the building has cameras on the outside, and you need a code or key fob to get inside. But people do let strangers in sometimes. There have been times when someone knocks on my door late at night and is gone when I look through the peephole. Several times this happened, which is why I chose to get a doorbell camera. Not at all. I only get alerts when someone is at my door so you can see who it is. I was recently told by my HOA to get rid of this because they were concerned about privacy. The only thing I can see when no one's at my door is the wall across the hallway. The HOA rules don't say I can't have the camera, but they told me they would change the rules if I didn't take it down. I talked to my homeowners, and they agree with me that the HOA should hold a vote. They believe this, along with some other recent events, is beginning to look like harassment. I'm interested to see how the board treats being questioned. Update. A lot's happened since the camera situation. My homeowners were up in arms because the HOA actually decided to add such a rule, and with it, many more rules and restrictions. The homeowners were furious and conspired with other neighbors to bring up the issue of removing the HOA board members, as they not only harassed the residents, but also clearly abused their power. A lot of people voted in favor, and now we have a new board, which is much cooler. If you want to watch the part 4, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for support.